Welcome everybody to May Is For Metta 2018 virtual gathering. I'll say number one, I'm planning to do at least one more as we move towards the close of May Is For Metta this year. And I didn't have a chance to share the event as much as I could have. I've been traveling a lot, so right now I'm here, and I think most folks will be listening to the recording. Maybe some folks will join in. So, but I still wanted to come together, and we do that energetically in the space of the May Is For Metta Circle. There's folks participating from all over the world, and creating a container during the month of May to explore loving kindness and compassion. So we don't ever necessarily need to be in the same place at the same time to share that connection and community. And I'm just so joyed to be exploring with folks again this year. I wanted to start just by reading just part of the intention of the Heart of Awakening blog, which is a blog I started in 2012. It came through doing May Is For Metta for a few years and wanting to have a space to share that. And it has to do with really remembering the big picture and living the full truth of who we are as a key to creating change in ourselves and our world. And by coming from a place of connection and wholeness, knowing that anything's possible. And one of the keys to this is to access and allow heart wisdom to be our guide. So, and I believe, it's for my own journey and in exploring with others, that metta and loving kindness practice is a powerful pathway for really coming in tune with that heart wisdom and allowing it to guide us in all aspects of our lives. So I wanted to start today with the quote that was in today's post by Albert Einstein. A human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself or herself, his or her thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. I just love that quote, and I love that it's by Albert Einstein, and I think it really speaks to the journey of May Is For Metta and widening our circle of compassion. So, and we do that as we've explored in the practice and is really taught in the Buddhist tradition that we must, in order to expand that circle of compassion, in order to offer loving kindness to others, we have to create that foundation within our own selves. So that's where we begin. And so I'd like to just share a few moments of settling in, and we'll do that by working with the foundational practice of May Is For Metta. And then I'll pause a little bit and share a few thoughts about some of the other categories and also share that part of the practice. So I invite you, wherever you are, to find a comfortable position. You can have your feet flat on the floor if you're on a chair, or be sitting cross-legged or in lotus posture on the ground, and having your hand on your lap or your legs, your spine straight but not tense, shoulders and stomach relaxed, and your hands on your knees or your lap. And then if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Otherwise, just have a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. I'll always keep my eyes open to make sure the room's safe for everyone. The space is safe for everyone. We're in different rooms. I guess that doesn't apply so much when we're virtual, but excuse me, that's the intention. when I'm with a group. So, and I just want to, since that arose, mention that some people are not comfortable practicing meditation, whether it's metta or other practices with their eyes closed for a variety of reasons. And some meditation practices are actually done with eyes open. So whether you're not comfortable closing your eyes or you prefer eyes open, you can just have a soft gaze a couple of feet on the floor in front of you, kind of glancing downward if that's more comfortable. Okay, so once you've found that comfortable position, I'm going to invite you to just take a few deeper breaths, breathing in for a count of 5 and out for a count of 5. Just letting your body and your mind begin to slow down, to unwind. Noticing how it feels to just pause for a few moments. If you sense any areas of tension or discomfort in your body, in your face, your jaw, your hands, your back, just letting the next few breaths gently flow over those areas, beginning to loosen and melt away any tensions. And then letting your breath settle into its own natural rhythm, wherever it feels to rest in this moment. And still staying present with the flow of your breath as it enters your body and leaves your body. And as we begin, I'm going to ring the bowl. I have my Tibetan bowl here, which I use as a meditation bowl. And so I'm going to ring that 3 times as we begin, and just invite you to listen to the sound for as long as you can hear it, as a way to move into a place of stillness and center. And the first ring is for all those who've practiced metta before us. The second ring is for all of us practicing metta together in this circle, whether in this moment, in this month of May, and in connection wherever we are in this moment. And the third ring is for all those who will practice metta in the future. So now that you've come into this place of stillness, I'm going to invite you to bring your breath and awareness into the heart center, right in the center of your chest, the center of love, compassion, gentleness for yourself and for others. Just noticing how it feels to connect with your own heart. Sometimes it feels open and spacious. Sometimes you notice some constriction or resistance. As you begin, you can just take a few moments almost of inquiry. How does it feel to connect with your heart in this moment? And this connection is something you may be cultivating during this month of May Is For Metta and in other ways. And then beginning to generate metta or loving kindness, that energy, that quality that we've been exploring together. And so we've talked about 2 ways that you can begin to do this. One way is to call upon one person, one being in your life, an individual who you really feel that sense of unconditional love and compassion from. Sometimes for some people, it's a grandparent, a family member, a mentor. For some people, it's one of their children, or even our animal friends and family, a dog or a cat. That being, you should just really feel that sense of warmth and unconditional love when you just call the thought of them into your mind. And so that's one way, is to think about one being. And if that's your preferred way, I'll just invite you to do that as we practice here together. The other way is to create a circle of loving beings. And so to do that, you'll imagine yourself sitting in the center of a circle. And you'll surround yourself with all loving beings. So this may be the one being that you've already called in, and other people in your life, friends or family, that you feel that sense of warmth and unconditional love from. Again, it can be humans, it can be animals. Sometimes there's even a certain place that you feel that, and you can hold yourself and your circle in that space. This can also include universal beings whom you feel really embody the energies of unconditional love, like the Buddha or Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, Jesus, according to your own beliefs, connections, where those qualities and energies you feel are embodied in beings that are maybe beyond your personal circle, but in a more universal way. You can even call them in. For some people, that's angels, ancestors. So allow you to take a few moments to call in that being or your circle of loving beings. And remembering, if you ever bring someone into your circle and you feel like there's some mixed feelings you're starting to have, that it's not that pure flow of unconditional love, and that might be because of the dynamics of a relationship, sometimes even with a family member, that's okay. There's other ways you can work with them with some of the other categories, but you really want your circle of loving beings to just be totally positive, unconditional love. So if there's any doubt or hesitation in someone, how you respond to someone in your circle, you can move them out for this time, knowing that you can practice with them another time in another way. And once you've created that connection, I'll invite you for a few moments to really, on your in-breath, breathe in that energy of love and compassion. Breathe in into your heart center on the in-breath. And as you breathe out, imagining it surrounding and enveloping you on the out-breath. And with each breath in, allowing it to fill you a little bit more. Flowing into your whole body, your whole being. As you breathe out, letting it continue to surround you. And as you breathe in again, really letting that energy of unconditional love and compassion flow into every atom and cell of your being. Imagine them being filled, lighting up with this energy of unconditional love. And as you breathe out, letting it completely surround and envelop you, and even just filling your whole circle. Feeling that embrace and support and connection that comes from your loving beings. And knowing that as you're held in that in this moment, and so you're also held in that in each and every moment. And this in itself, generating this energy of loving kindness, is something you can use as a practice and as a support for yourself in your life. And once that feeling's generated, you can move on to offering some phrases for yourself. So I'll say the phrases a few times and then just give us a few moments to practice in silence. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. And if you've been working with different phrases or variety of phrases, you can continue in that way. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. And so taking a few moments in silence to practice in this way. If you'd like to, you can pause the audio or video here and continue to work on practicing your foundation and generating metta through the visualization and through the phrases. And if you feel to continue on with me at this time, I'll invite you to come back, maybe take some deeper breaths, move your hands and feet a little bit, open your eyes if they're closed. And I'll ring the bell just once to bring us back together. And to read a few more quotes that have come, that we've shared, and some that may be coming. Let's see. This one feels good. This is from Pema Chodron. It's one of my favorite teachers, and it says, "Compassion is not a magical device that can instantly dispel all suffering. The path of compassion is altruistic but not idealistic. Walking this path, we are not asked to lay down our life, find a solution for all of the struggles in this world, or immediately rescue all beings. We are asked to explore how we may transform our own hearts and minds in the moment. Can we understand the transparency of division and separation? Can we liberate our hearts from ill will, fear, and cruelty? Can we find the steadfastness, patience, generosity, and commitment not to abandon anyone or anything in this world? Can we learn how to listen deeply and discover the heart that trembles in the face of suffering? The path of compassion is cultivated one step at a time and one moment at a time. Each of those steps lessens the mountain of sorrow in the world. I feel a lot when I read that quote, and I wanted to interject because when it talks about can we find the steadfastness, patience, generosity, and commitment not to abandon anyone or anything in this world, I think that we really need to include ourselves in that, and that's sometimes something that's hard to do. So, and it's as we do that, as we discussed a little bit in the practice and reflections, that as we do that for ourselves, then we can expand that out to others. I think I'll right now share one more. It was kind of a quote. It was something the Buddha shares about the practice of metta and the power of cultivating the energy of loving kindness. That there's 11 benefits, and I'm just going to read through those so we have them in our awareness. 1, you will sleep easily. 2, you will wake easily. 3, you will have pleasant dreams. 4, people will love you. 5, devas or celestial beings and animals will love you. 6, devas or celestial beings will protect you. 7, external dangers will not harm you. 8, your face will be radiant. 9, your mind will be serene. 10, you will die unconfused. And 11, you will be reborn in happy realms. So, there's a lot of positive benefits that the Buddha shared that just, I think, from people's experience, even those who are new to May Is For Metta or Metta practice are noticing. And I'd love to hear more from you, maybe in the Facebook group, about benefits that you're noticing as we move through the rest of May Is For Metta. So I think I'd like to continue. We'll take a few moments to just briefly explore the other categories. So we are on day 19 of May Is For Metta today. And so we have about 12 days left in the 31 days. And let me think. I lost my train of thought for a second about that. Oh, we've moved through all of the categories. So we are on, we finished all beings, or added all beings. And I try and, as we move through the different categories, we start a little bit more with the foundation of cultivating loving kindness for ourselves, but we also spend some time, a couple of days in each of the categories, and then it builds to the full practice. So I just want to touch on that a little bit. Today I offered to create your own metta practice, and that's to just support that you have all the different pieces of the full practice at this point. And there may be days where you feel to do the full practice, and I think there's great benefit that comes when you do that. And there may be times when you're not able to do the whole practice, or you're just feeling to do the foundation or certain categories. So I encourage you to explore with that. It's always good to begin with the foundation, even just for a little bit, as you work with other categories. But it can be a wonderful way to offer loving kindness and compassion to others, especially in the moment when maybe there's nothing that you can do in an outer way to support them. So I'm going to invite you again to find that comfortable position wherever you're sitting. And if you would like, you can close your eyes. And just going to ring the bell once for us to come together, and invite you to just make that heart connection as you listen to the sound of the bell. coming into just that place of generating metta for yourself just for a moment, whether it's with one being or your circle of loving beings, and offering one round of phrases for yourself as we move on to the other categories. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. And I'll just remind you that this foundation is something to always come back to during your practice. When you have difficulty, maybe difficult feelings arise, if you're finding yourself very distracted for some reason, it's a good place to come back, because it's in that moment when you notice difficult feelings, when you notice that you've become distracted, when perhaps you might move into a place of self-criticism or judgment, that you're not doing it right, or frustration, that is the perfect moment to practice loving kindness and compassion for yourself. That is where we transform ourselves. So I invite you to, as much as you need to, come back to that foundation. And so now I'll invite you to call in a benefactor or a mentor. So this is someone who has really supported you along your way, whom you feel that sense of unconditional love and support from. So it may be the being you worked with in generating metta, or someone in your circle of loving beings. For me, it is, I have a few benefactors or mentors I call in, but one is my grandma Clara, who was just such a shining light in my life. And I just feel that warmth in my heart when I think of her. She was such a support. So sometimes when folks are new to the practice, it's suggested to work with someone who's living rather than someone who's transitioned. So I just want to mention that, because sometimes it can bring up a variety of feelings. But you can trust your own guidance in terms of that. So calling that benefactor into your awareness, you can almost imagine them sitting across from you, feeling that heart connection that flows between you. And beginning to offer them the phrases, remembering that the phrases are just a symbol of the energy or quality of loving kindness and compassion. So you're really offering that energy, and the phrases are a vehicle for that. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. We'll just spend a few moments silently offering loving kindness to our benefactor or mentor. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. And if you'd like to continue practicing for a benefactor or mentor, at this time you can pause the audio or video. Continue. When you feel complete, once again, just coming back to your own heart center, taking a few breaths there. Noticing how it's felt to offer loving kindness to a benefactor rather than yourself. And this is something we've explored a little bit in the posts, but it's good as you practice and work with the different categories. One of the benefits of metta practice is that it gives you the opportunity to notice how it feels to open your heart to offer loving kindness to different people, different beings, and in the different categories. And it gives you some awareness about yourself, maybe where you're more open and more closed, and how you can work with that in your own heart. So, and it is always good to come back to your own heart center, as you move from one category to another, to just, as you practice more and more, you may just very easily reconnect with the circle of loving beings, or generating loving kindness for yourself. If you need to, you can spend a few moments practicing, or as long as you need to. But sometimes just kind of making that connection again brings you back to that. And then when you're feeling ready, you can move on to the next category, which is beloved. We say beloved. It could be a family member or a good friend. And as we move towards this category, and we're moving out from ourselves to the benefactor, which again is someone we have that complete sense of unconditional love from, whether it was a relative or teacher or guide. As we move to the beloved category of beloved, again, it may be a family member or close friend, but we should have generally positive feelings about that person. If it's someone who we have a lot of challenge or difficulty with, even though we feel that love for them, we may want to work with it as we move more along towards the difficult being. So just notice that as you call in a beloved. And there's times, you may want to practice and certainly offer metta to someone who's a beloved who you have challenges with. But as we're kind of moving the practice out from ourselves, kind of going in gradations, of positive feelings to the neutral, and then expanding it out. So call in a beloved at this time who you have generally positive feelings for, and it could be, again, a family member or friend, perhaps someone you know who is needing support or struggling in some way today, who's been a support for you in different ways in your life. And then as you imagine them sitting across from you, or calling them into your awareness, you can begin to send that energy of loving kindness or compassion to them. Do this energetically, by visualizing it, sometimes just imagining a connection from your heart to their heart, and then beginning to offer the phrases to them. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, may you have ease of well-being. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, may you have ease of well-being. And so we'll just spend a few minutes silently practicing sending loving kindness to our beloved. And again, if you have any challenge or distraction arise, you can always come back with your focus on the beloved to the next set of phrases, or bring your practice back to yourself as you feel you need to. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, may you have ease of well-being. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. It's really extending that energy out to your beloved. And if you'd like to continue, you can pause here, the audio or video, and continue as you feel to. And just resting in that space, I just wanted to share another quote before we move to the next category. You can stay in a place of stillness as you feel to. The light of loving kindness can be compared to that of the stars, the sun, or the moon. It shines on all loving beings everywhere, encompassing them all without exception or bias. And I'll read one more. Let thoughts of loving kindness pervade the whole world, above and below, outwards and unbounded, free from any hatred or ill will. Whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, during all one's waking hours, tend this mind of goodwill, which is called the state of sublime abiding. That's from the Sutta Nipata from the Buddha. Actually, the first quote was from a book called Living with Your Heart Wide Open by Steve Flowers and Bob Stahl, which is one of my favorites. So, and I wanted to share that, we're going to move towards the category of all being, and the Buddha mentioned the whole world, and the other quote mentioned really carrying that loving kindness out in a broader way. And so as we move to the next category of neutral being, that is, I think, where we begin to expand outside of our own circle. We start with our own circle, ourself, our inner circle, and then our benefactor we have a strong connection with, and our beloveds, the family or friends that we are connected to in some personal way. And as we move to the next category of neutral being, it's the first time we move beyond that. And so that is a stretch, sometimes even just in our awareness, do we even notice neutral beings as we go throughout our day sometimes? People we pass on the street, or someone we encounter, if we're in the supermarket or in a store. So these are neutral beings whom we may encounter in some way, but we have no positive or negative feelings towards. So, if you have an interaction with someone somewhere and there's a conflict, that's really not a neutral being because you're having difficult feelings, and we're going to get to that category. So, I'll invite you to, again, take a moment to come back to your own heart center. Perhaps call on your loving being or circle of loving beings and really take in that energy of loving kindness and compassion for a moment. Offer a round of phrases for yourself. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. And then noticing, taking a moment just to notice how that feels to reconnect with yourself and your own heart. Remembering that's something you can come back to in each and every moment. And now calling into your awareness a neutral being. So someone you've, just sort of noticed maybe today or yesterday as you were out and about. I'm thinking I went to have breakfast at a little cafe, and there was someone who, just brought me my breakfast. and didn't really interact with her very much at all. So, it can be someone you passed on the street, and just for some reason you have some impression of them is in your awareness. But again, there's no positive or negative feeling you have towards them. So as you call them into your awareness, just acknowledge as we begin working with the neutral being that just as I wish to be happy and peaceful and free of suffering and of ease of well-being, so does this person, this neutral being. So beginning to send that energy of loving kindness and compassion towards them, and offering some phrases for them as well. And you can say, may you be happy, or may he or she be happy. I'll use she since I mentioned the person I'm thinking of. May she be happy. May she be peaceful. May she be free of suffering. May she have ease of well-being. May she be happy. May she be peaceful. May she be free of suffering. May she have ease of well-being. So we'll just spend a few moments practicing in this way. Remembering again that you can always come back to yourself or to the phrases as you notice your mind wanders or you have any challenging feelings arise. May she be happy. May she be peaceful. May she be free of suffering. May she have ease of well-being. May she be happy. May she be peaceful. May she be free of suffering. May she have ease of well-being. So if would like to continue working with your neutral being, you can pause the audio here and continue. If you'd like to move on to the next category of difficult being, I invite you to first, again, come back to your center, your heart center. Taking a few breaths there, reconnecting with your circle of loving beings or being, and offering a round or two of phrases for yourself. Just again, noticing how it feels to extend loving kindness and compassion out to someone you really don't know. That's how we begin to widen our circle of loving kindness and compassion right there. And create some connection where oftentimes as we move through the world in our day, we're in a lot of disconnection unless we choose to be more intentional and create that connection. So, and also noticing how then it feels to come back to yourself and your heart, which again, that's just a powerful gift of this practice, that you can learn how easy it is to do that in each and every moment, wherever you may be with whatever is arising. It's often in many spiritual traditions we talk about returning to the well, and that might be connecting with source or community, but it's also coming back to ourself and our own heart. in that well of unconditional love that is inside of us, that we may generate and awaken through connecting with other beings and universal beings and creation, the energy of creation, but it dwells deep within inside ourselves. And just with that intention and awareness, we can access that. So with that foundation, we'll now move on to the category of difficult being, which for some people can be very challenging. Why would we offer love and kindness and compassion to someone who we feel challenged by, whom in the traditional practice is referred to as an enemy? So why would we ever want to offer loving kindness and compassion to our enemy, or someone who we feel such difficulty with? That can often go against the grain for many of us. But it is, I want to say that this is where we close our hearts when we create that separation. And I mentioned as we moved into the last category, something that we often say, and that can be a part of the practice, is that just as I wish to feel happy and peaceful and be free of suffering and have ease of well-being, so does this being. And that's part of the practice, is acknowledging that we're all human beings. And certainly it's hard to understand sometimes why some human beings act in certain ways or are hurtful. And so, there's going to be a wide range of difficult beings. It is suggested early in the practice to choose maybe a sort of more mildly difficult being, not the most challenging or most painful relationship you have, or, not the most, not someone who you feel just has so much negativity that it would, bring up so much for you, to begin slowly kind of wade into this category of difficult being. But it is somewhere where we can begin to offer that, again, expand that circle of compassion. So, and I think one thing that we have to remember is that when we do close ourselves off, and, sometimes that's because we feel we need to protect ourselves. It's not that we want to, throw ourselves at this difficult being or someone who's hurt us. We do have to, again, practice that compassion and self-care. However, in one of the first May Is For Metta posts, we talked about the idea of, seeing this person as vulnerable, because regardless of the outer facade or actions of a person, somewhere deep inside there, there is that, small child or baby, that vulnerability within. And if we could, kind of connect with that and see them as really wanting the same things we want, hopefully, that can help us in bridging, that connection. And as I mentioned in the Facebook group, and I think possibly in the post, people sometimes see miraculous changes, particularly with difficult beings in their own lives, whether it's someone you work with or a family member. People always share with me after exploring this practice that, they just saw something that changed. And sometimes it seems, a lot of times it's from what's within ourselves. And how we're responding to the person or situation. But sometimes I can hear stories about just the way that other person was acting towards them is just miraculously changed from a small amount of this practice. So I think it's really powerful in that way. So I'll invite you now to think about a difficult person. Perhaps again, someone in your life. It could be a friend or family member or someone you work with. Maybe it could be as simple as someone you cut you off on the highway if we're talking about a difficult, mildly difficult situation. Although people respond to that differently. So, and if you've been working with the practice for a while, you have more of a sense of that. So I invite you to call that difficult being into your awareness, beginning to offer the energy of loving kindness and compassion to them. And as you begin to offer the phrases, just noticing how that feels. And if at any point you feel challenged or feels difficult or you feel drained in some way, you can always come back to practicing for yourself. Just remember that. So as we begin to offer for our difficult being, we just ask that and acknowledge that just as I wish to be happy and peaceful and free of suffering and have ease of well-being, so does this difficult being. Showering them with that energy of loving kindness and compassion. May it be happy, may it be peaceful, may it be free of suffering, may it have ease of well-being. May it be happy, may it be peaceful, may it be free of suffering, may it have ease of well-being. So we'll take a few moments silently to practice and offer loving kindness to our difficult being. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, may you have ease of well-being. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free of suffering, may you have ease of well-being. And noticing how it's felt to practice for a difficult being for a moment in your reflections. Any differences or changes from practicing for yourself or for any of the other categories, you can just notice. And this is why sometimes I do suggest the journaling practices, so you can kind of begin to really expand your awareness of yourself and your relationship with others and the cultivation of loving kindness and compassion. So now bringing your attention back to yourself, your breath and awareness into your heart center, right in the center of your chest. And really reconnecting. Let's, after offering ourselves and that energy to a difficult being, let's really come back to our foundation for a few more moments. So sitting in your circle of loving beings or with your one loving being, breathing in that energy of loving kindness and compassion on the in-breath. As you breathe out, letting it surround and envelop you. Breathing it in, letting it fill every atom and cell of your being. Breathing out, really filling your whole self, your whole circle with that energy. So that inwardly and outwardly you're infused and energized with the energy of unconditional love, kindness, and compassion. And offering a couple of rounds of phrases for yourself. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. May I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free of suffering. May I have ease of well-being. And so as we move on to our last category of all beings, which can be also sometimes a challenging category in that there's a vastness of all beings that sometimes is hard for us to grasp. What comes up sometimes is that similar to a difficult being and wondering why would I want to offer this to a difficult being, when people start to think of all beings, they think of beings who maybe have done horrible things, in the world and hurt others, and have, we're including those being people in all beings. So again, sometimes this is a stretch, or can, as they say, go against our grain a little bit. So one of the ways we can work with that is to work with smaller groups of all beings. So we talked about all children, all women, all men, all animals. And so for today, or a smaller community, so sometimes I like to work with if we were together in a circle, our circle present here. But for this practice, we'll work with our circle of May Is For Metta practitioners, wherever we may be. But I wanted to read just another quote before we move into this last part of the practice. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to read this one from the Dalai Lama. One great question underlies our experience, whether we think about it consciously or not. What is the purpose of life? I've considered this question and would like to share my thoughts in the hope that they may be of direct, practical benefit to those who read them. I believe that the purpose of life is to be happy. From the moment of birth, every human being wants happiness and does not want suffering. Neither social conditioning, nor education, nor ideology affect this. From the very core of our being, we simply desire contentment. I don't know whether the universe, with its countless galaxies, stars, and planets, has a deeper meaning or not. But at the very least, it is clear that we humans who live on this earth face the task of making a happy life for ourselves. Therefore, it is important to discover what will bring about the greatest degree of happiness. From my own limited experience, I found that the greatest degree of inner tranquility comes from the development of love and compassion. And that comes from a book called Compassion and the Individual by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So, okay. So I think that's a perfect lead into moving into our last category of all beings. And so I'll invite you to maybe we came back to our center and our own circle of loving beings. Just take a moment again, because as we do move into the category of all beings and the vastness of it, we want to make sure we've really generated a strong foundation of loving kindness. So just take a moment again in your own space to do that. And offer a few rounds of phrases for yourself. And so now wherever you are, just imagining that you're connected to all the beings in May Is For Metta who are participating. And again, we might not all practice every day. We may practice in our own way. We may never be in the same physical space. Some of us are connected in the May Is For Metta Facebook group, and some just through being in the community, participating in their own way. But know that we're together in this practice that creates community and connection, and we're all over the world. And if you'd like, just imagine seeing little lights all over the globe who are practicing metta at this time. You may know some of them personally, so if you do, you can just imagine some of those that you know, or know their name or their face. And the others, just hold in the intention of being in circle with them. And so as we begin to send out that energy of loving kindness and compassion to all of the beings, all the beautiful beings in our May Is For Metta Sangha, our community, just imagine that love and compassion going out towards them, wherever they may be. And we'll say the phrases. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. And we'll just practice silently for a few moments in this way. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be free of suffering. May you have ease of well-being. Really noticing how it feels to send out the energy of metta, of loving kindness, to a larger group of beings. If you'd like to continue, you can pause the audio or video here. And so now we'll move on to the category of all beings to close out this time together. And again, this is very vast. If for some reason it does feel too much and you want to build your practice more, you can continue to practice for the May Is For Metta community. You can choose another group, such as all women or children. Sometimes we can do this, for a community, as we did here, that we're a part of, or a family, larger extended family as well. But the idea of all beings is to really begin to extend, again, widen our circle of compassion out to all beings in the world, and with the understanding that just as I wish to be happy and peaceful and free of suffering and have ease of well-being, so do all beings without exception. So I'll take a moment to come back into your center, connecting with your own circle of loving beings. They're generating that feeling of loving kindness and compassion. Offering a round of phrases for yourself. And knowing that that's where, so this foundation that allows you to extend that energy out to others and the world. And then in whatever way you feel to, imagining, getting to think of or imagine all beings. And again, you could see them as lights all over the world. And you can imagine even just holding the earth, Mother Earth, and all her children in your hands. And then offering the phrases. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings have ease of well-being. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings have ease of well-being. And so we'll practice for a few moments silently, just extending the metta, the loving kindness that we've generated for ourselves, together in community, for one another, out to all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings have ease of well-being. And so taking a moment there as we complete our practice let's take a moment to dedicate the merit of our practice. Let's ask that this practice, each of our individual practices, and the practice of our May Is For Metta Sangha or community be for all beings, for all those who are suffering, for all those who wish to have happiness and peace and ease of well-being, that the benefit of this practice may be for all beings without exception. And just imagine that energy going out wherever it needs to go, supporting all beings, supporting all those in need. And give you a few moments to begin to come back. I'm going to ring the bell once just to help bring you back to the present. Tashi Dela, I honor the greatness within you. So close out with one final quote, which I think was shared in an earlier post. Reaching a state of compassion is the ultimate gift we give ourselves as human beings. It is knowing and feeling that all power is within us and that none is vested outside of us, neither in material things nor in the circumstances of our lives. Compassion comes from loving ourselves so completely that we see and feel others only through that love. I'm going to read that sentence again. Compassion comes from loving ourselves so completely that we see and feel others only through that love. In a state of compassion, oneness is our reality. And that's by Arnold Patton. Okay, I think I'll leave it with that one there. What more can we say? So I'm so grateful for all who are joining May Is For Metta 2018. And I plan to share at least one more opportunity for virtual gathering and some additional materials as we move towards the end of May Is For Metta on May 31st. And a couple of years ago, I did offer a program over the summer on loving ourselves, for those who are interested in continuing to expand that as a foundational practice. So I'll be sharing more about that as we move toward the end of the month. Please feel free to share any reflections, comments, or questions on the blog, in the Facebook group. I so appreciate folks who are sharing their experiences, and would love to see more of that. And just wish you a very beautiful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.